Okay, so have you ever, like, tried to teach your dog something, and they're just staring at you like you're speaking a foreign language?
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's like they've suddenly decided that canine selective hearing is an Olympic sport.
Right. And that's when I started thinking, maybe I need a whole new approach to this whole training thing.
Hmm.
And that's actually how I stumbled upon this thing called clicker training.
Ah, yeah, clicker training.
Yeah.
That's been gaining a lot of traction lately. Lots of dog owners swearing by it, saying it's like the secret weapon to unlock your dog's inner genius or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen so many videos online of dogs doing these incredible tricks, all thanks to clicker training.
Mm.
But the skeptic in me is wondering, does it really live up to the hype? Is this like the real deal or just another passing fad in the world of dog training?
Well, that's what we're diving into today. You've got some fascinating research on clicker training, so we'll dig into that, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll know whether it's something you want to try with your own four-legged friend.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
So from what I've gathered so far, clicker training is all about using a clicker to mark the exact moment the dog does something right, and then rewarding them with a treat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, cha-ching, you won the good behavior lottery.
Exactly. But it's more than just marking the behavior. It's tapping into the power of positive reinforcement. That clicker sound becomes a distinct signal free from all the emotional baggage we humans tend to carry in our voices. And when that click is paired with a tasty treat, the dog starts connecting the dots. Aha! Doing that thing gets me deliciousness, and guess what? They're going to want to do that thing again and again.
So it's like we're speaking their language, but instead of a good boy, it's a click that translates to treat party in my mouth.
Precisely. And the beauty of the clicker is its consistency. Our tone of voice can fluctuate even when we're trying to be super encouraging, but that clicker, it's always the same clear and unambiguous signal for the dog. No room for misinterpretation.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what else I found interesting? Apparently, clicker training is supposed to be super precise. You can pinpoint the exact moment the dog gets it right, which apparently speeds up the learning process.
Absolutely. With traditional methods, it's easy to fumble with verbal cues or even accidentally reward the wrong behavior. But the clicker, it's like a perfectly timed snapshot of that aha moment for the dog. This, right here. This is what earned me that yummy treat.
So no more confused doggy faces like, wait, was it the tail wag or the head tilt that got me the treat?
Precisely. It removes all the guesswork, makes the whole training process much more efficient. And according to the research, it can work for any dog, regardless of age, breed, or personality.
Okay, now that's something I'm definitely interested in. A training method that can actually handle my dog's unique brand of stubbornness. Sign me up. But before I go on a clipper shopping spree, let's talk about the actual steps involved. What does it look like to actually get started with this whole clicker training thing?
Well, the first step is pretty straightforward. You need a clicker and some high-value treats. Clickers are easy to find at any pet store or online. And they're not expensive at all.
Okay, got it. Clicker acquired, check. Now, when you say high-value treats, what exactly are we talking about?
We're talking about those irresistible little nuggets of pure joy that your dog goes absolutely crazy for, something they'd move heaven and earth for.
So not those generic dry biscuits that taste like cardboard. We're talking gourmet stuff.
Yeah.
Michelin star treats that'll make their tails wag like crazy.
Right, exactly. Think tiny pieces of cooked chicken or cheese, or maybe even little bits of hot dog. You want something that'll make them think, I will learn every trick in the book if it means I get more of these.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Clicker check. Gourmet treats that'll make a top chef jealous check. Now what? How do we actually start teaching them a specific command, like sit, for example?
The first step is what's called loading the clicker. It's all about teaching your dog that the click sound means a delicious reward is coming their way. So you simply click the clicker and immediately give them a treat. Easy peasy.
Wait, really? That's it? No complicated hand signals or chanting ancient dog whispering spells?
Nope, it's that simple, but super effective. You're creating a positive association with the click sound. Kinda like Pavlov's dogs, but with way more tail wags and fewer drool buckets.
So basically, we're conditioning them to get excited about the clicker sound.
Yeah.
It's like their own personal dinner bell, but for training.
Precisely. Do that click treat sequence a bunch of times, and you'll start to see their ears perk up and their eyes light up as soon as they hear that click. They'll be thinking, oh boy, here comes the good stuff.
Now, what if I accidentally click at the wrong time? Like I'm a little slow on the draw and the click happens a second too late. Is that going to mess up the whole thing?
Don't worry. We all make mistakes, especially when we're starting out. The more you practice, the better your timing will get. But if you do click late, just try again and focus on that split-second timing.
Okay, phew. So it's all about practice and consistency. But you know what I'm thinking now? What if my dog gets a little too clever and figures out how to make the clicker work themselves? Like, hey, if I just nudge this thing with my nose.
Uh-huh, that's a classic. And it can be pretty hilarious to watch them try to outsmart us. But there are ways to prevent them from becoming the clicker masters of the house.
Because a dog who can train themselves to get treats, that's a level of genius I'm not prepared to deal with. So how do we keep them from becoming clicker-obsessed maniacs?
The key is to control the clicker. Make sure you're holding it securely out of reach of those sneaky paws. And be mindful of how often you're clicking. The goal is to use it sparingly, and only when they've truly earned it.
Okay, so no leaving the clicker lying around like a tempting chew toy. Got it. But what about those times when you really need to reinforce a behavior? Can you click and treat multiple times in a row?
You can definitely click and treat multiple times, especially if you're working on something new or challenging. But the ultimate goal is to eventually phase out the treats and rely more on praise petting or a quick game of fetch as rewards.
So it's like graduating from treats to more grown-up rewards. The joy of learning and making their humans happy.
Exactly. That's where the magic of clicker training really shines. You see that light bulb moment when they master a new skill, and it's incredibly rewarding for both of you.
I love that. But not every dog is going to be a clicker training prodigy right from the start. What if my dog is more interested in chasing squirrels than learning to shake paws? What if they just don't seem to be getting it?
That's completely normal. Every dog learns at their own pace. And some dogs might take a little longer to wrap their heads around the whole clicker training concept.
Okay, so I shouldn't be comparing my dog's progress to those super smart border collies on Instagram who seem to know every trick in the book.
No two dogs are the same, and it's super important to make training fun and engaging. If your dog seems bored or frustrated, it might be time to switch things up a bit.
So keep it short, sweet, and full of those delicious high-value treats.
That's the recipe for success. And don't be afraid to get creative. If your dog loves playing fetch work that into the training sessions, the key is to find what motivates them and use that to your advantage.
Now, one thing I was curious about is the versatility of clicker training. We've talked about basic commands and fun tricks, but can you actually use it for those less than desirable behaviors? Like, can I use it to stop my dog from barking at every squirrel that dares to enter our yard?
Absolutely. Clicker training can be a game changer for dealing with those pesky problem behaviors. From excessive barking to jumping on guests, it's all about shifting the focus from punishment to positive reinforcement.
Okay, that makes sense. But how did that actually work in practice? Like if my dog's got a serious case of the zoomies every time someone comes over, how do I use clicker training to teach them to chill out?
Instead of scolding them for getting overly excited, you would use the clicker to reward them for staying calm. For example, you could have someone ring the doorbell, and if your dog manages to keep all four paws on the ground instead of turning into a furry tornado, you click and treat.
So basically we're catching them in the act of being good and reinforcing that desired behavior with the click and treat.
Precisely. It's about rewarding what we do want to see instead of punishing what we don't want.
That's pretty clever. So we're kind of rewiring their brains to associate good behavior with those positive clicks and treats.
You got it. And over time, they start to understand, hey, if I want to get those yummy snacks, I got to keep my cool when someone comes over.
I gotta say, I'm really liking this whole clicker training idea. It seems like a much more positive and effective way to communicate with our dogs. But before we dive even deeper into the clicker training world, let's take a quick break to process all this awesome information. We'll be back in part 2 with even more insights into this fascinating training method. Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive deeper into the world of clicker training.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty pumped about this whole clicker training thing.
I can tell. You're practically vibrating with excitement.
Well, let's be real for a second. Training any animal, even the adorable furry ones, can be a bit of a roller coaster ride.
Oh, absolutely. There will be moments of pure joy, and then there will be moments where you question your sanity and wonder if you've somehow adopted a furry little Einstein who's decided to outsmart you at every turn.
Right. Like those times when you're trying to teach them something simple like sit, and they're looking at you like you've just asked them to solve a complex mathematical equation.
Exactly. And that's when you got to remember, every dog is unique. They all learn at their own pace. Some dogs are like little sponges soaking up new tricks in a flash. And then others, well, they might need a little more time and patience.
Okay, so patience is key.
Got it.
Got it. But are there any common mistakes that even experienced dog owners might make with clicker training? Things to watch out for? Just to avoid those moments of utter training despair.
One of the biggest pitfalls is timing. You got to be quick on the draw with that clicker. Remember, the click needs to happen the instant the dog performs the desired behavior. Even a split-second delay can create confusion.
So it's all about that perfect click-treat synchronicity, like a well-rehearsed dance move.
Precisely. And another common mistake is relying too heavily on treats. In the beginning, treats are essential to build that positive association with the clicker. But as your dog progresses, you want to start phasing them out and relying more on other types of rewards.
So it's not about bribing them with an endless supply of tasty morsels?
Nope. It's about using treats strategically to motivate them and then gradually shifting to other forms of reinforcement like praise a good scratch behind the ears or a fun game of fetch.
Okay, so we're aiming for a well-rounded reward system.
Yeah.
Treats, praise, playtime, the whole shebang.
Exactly. It's about keeping things interesting and making sure your dog stays engaged in the training process.
Now, what about those times when your dog just seems to be in their own little world, completely oblivious to your clicker training attempts? Any tips for dealing with a dog who's more interested in sniffing squirrels than learning to shake paws?
Patience, my friend. And maybe a little bit of creativity. Sometimes you got to think outside the treat jar and figure out what really gets your dog's tail wagging.
So if my dog's a fetch fanatic, maybe I should incorporate some fetch time into the training sessions.
Exactly. The key is to find what motivates them and use it to your advantage. Turn training into a game, something they actually enjoy doing.
I like that. So
Yeah.
we're not just training them, we're building a bond, having fun, and maybe even getting a little exercise in the process.
Exactly. And that's where the beauty of clicker training really shines. It's not just about teaching commands, it's about strengthening that connection between you and your furry companion.
Speaking of connection, one thing that really intrigued me about clicker training is its versatility. We've talked about basic commands and fun tricks, but can you actually use it to address those less than desirable behaviors? Like, can I use it to stop my dog from counter surfing or barking at the mailman?
Absolutely. Clicker training can be a game changer for tackling those pesky problem behaviors. It's all about shifting the focus from punishment to positive reinforcement. Instead of scolding them for doing something wrong, you're rewarding them for doing something right.
So it's like we're rewiring their brains to focus on the good stuff.
Exactly. Let's say your dog has a habit of jumping on guests instead of yelling no. Every time they do it, you could use the clicker to reward them for keeping all four paws on the ground when someone comes over.
So we're basically catching them in the act of being good and reinforcing that with the click and treat.
You got it. It's about showing them that good behavior leads to positive outcomes.
I love that. It seems like a much more positive and effective way to deal with those frustrating behaviors. But I'm also wondering about the practicality of it all. Like, what about those times when you're out in public and you don't want to be clicking away like a metronome? Can you transition from the clicker to verbal cues or hand signals?
Absolutely. As your dog becomes more proficient with clicker training, you can start verbal cues and hand signals. They'll start to associate those cues with the desired behavior, just like they did with the clicker.
So it's like graduating from training wheels to riding a bike on their own.
Precisely. And the great thing about clicker training is that it encourages dogs to think for themselves. They're not just blindly following commands. They're actively engaged in the learning process, figuring out how to earn those clicks and rewards.
Now, let's be real for a second. Even with the best intentions and the most patient approach, there are bound to be those moments when things don't go exactly as planned. Those moments when the training session turns into a comedy routine.
Oh, absolutely. Those moments are inevitable. And you know what? They're often the most hilarious and memorable parts of the training journey.
Yeah, spill the beans. What kind of clicker training bloopers should we be prepared for? I'm ready for a good laugh.
Okay, so you want to hear about some clicker training bloopers.
Oh yeah, I'm ready for a good laugh. Spill the beans.
All right, so one classic blooper is the accidental click. You know,
Yeah.
you're reaching for a treat or adjusting the clicker, and oops, your finger slips, and suddenly you've clicked.
Oh no.
And your dog's like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything yet. Where's my reward?
Oh yeah, I can totally see that happening. It's
Yeah.
like when you accidentally send a text to the wrong person.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh no, what have I done?
Exactly. And then there's the dog who becomes so obsessed with the clicker, they basically forget about the actual behavior you're trying to train.
Oh yeah, the clicker hypnotized dog.
They're just laser focused on that sound. They'll do
Ah.
anything to hear it, even if it means performing some bizarre combination of sit, spin, and roll over all at the same time.
That's hilarious. I can just picture it now.
It's funny, but it also reminds us that we need to use the clicker strategically, make sure it's clearly connected to the behavior we want to see.
Right. It's not just about clicking randomly.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that Clicker training isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Some dogs pick it up quickly, others might need a little more time and patience.
So if your dog isn't turning into a clicker-trained superstar overnight, don't worry. It's totally normal.
Yeah, just keep practicing, stay positive, and remember to have fun with it.
And if you're feeling stuck or frustrated, don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Hmm.
There are so many resources available, online forums, dog trainers, you name it.
Exactly. There's a whole community of clicker training enthusiasts out there who are more than happy to share their tips and tricks.
Okay, so to wrap things up, I think it's safe to say that clicker training is a pretty awesome method for communicating with our furry friends.
It's all about clarity, consistency, and of course, positive reinforcement.
And remember, folks, it's a journey, not a race. So enjoy the process, embrace the bloopers, and celebrate those little victories along the way.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about strengthening that bond with your furry best friend.
Well said.
Yeah.
So to all you dog lovers out there, grab your clickers, stock up on those delicious treats, and get ready for a whole new world of training fun.
Happy clicking.